We are just about 24 hours away from our next major winter storm taking shape across the South Central US, and model guidance is in much better agreement in terms of track, precipitation type, and amounts. But before we jump in and start looking at the models, I want to show you guys the snowfall impacts map and the icing impacts map. So let's take a look at those first. Here is the snowfall impacts map that I created. And again, this is valid Friday through Monday. And we're going to have a large swath of significant impacts expected all the way from Texas through Oklahoma into the mid-Atlantic and New England region, with moderate impacts going to be felt within the dark blue shaded region, and then low impacts from the snowfall felt within the light blue region. And along with snow, we are going to have a crippling ice storm, and it is looking more and more likely that there are going to be significant impacts felt across a large portion of the South Central and Southeastern US, where 1 to 2 inches of ice accretion is possible. And guys, this amount of ice will result in downed trees, downed power lines, and long duration power outages. And with the Arctic cold that's going to be in place, this makes for a very, very dangerous situation for those folks. Travel will be extremely life-threatening, if not altogether impossible, especially within this dark, bright pink region here. That is going to be where the greatest impacts are felt in terms of icing. Moving on here, let's take a look at the current winter weather alerts. And yes, the U.S. is looking like a lit up Christmas tree this morning. We have winter storm watches in blue extending all the way from New Mexico up to, now it's extending to New England, Massachusetts, and into Maine. So that's greater than a 2,000-mile distance with winter storm watches. We got winter storm warnings in pink and ice storm warnings in purple. And guys, expect the warned region to begin expanding, to keep expanding throughout the day. Now on to the model guidance, and for this video we will only look at the Euro and the GFS, and they're fairly similar. I will post a later video looking at the Euro AI, the UK Met, and maybe some of the other models too, so stay tuned for that. But this one we're just going to look at the Euro and the GFS just to keep things kind of short here. But here we're going to begin with the Euro. We're going to look at the upper levels, the 500 millibar and vorticity map, and here's that energy that is going to supply the storm, and it's also going to supply the ample amount of moisture. And let's move this along here. You're going to see this start moving out into the South Central US, and this is the piece of energy that's going to dig southward, and that's going to be the steering mechanism that's going to steer this storm up into the northeast. And look at this. Here's the energy. It gets out ahead of the northern piece, and it steers it to the north and east. And you also, along with that energy, you're also going to have a confluence zone right in here. Let me back this up just a little bit. Here's your confluence zone between the northern branch jet stream and the southern branch jet stream, and you're going to get an even larger precipitation field. And that's going to, with the southwest flow here, you see you have the trough coming in like this, and you get the flow out of the southwest. That's going to drive all that precipitation northward. And let's move this along here. Look where this energy goes because of how far south and how strong this northern piece is. It steers it to the north and east. And look at this. You get a classic setup for a nice nor'easter. Now let's look at the surface map. Let's take a look at the surface map because there's a lot to this. All right, so here we go. This is through the day on, let me look here. This is going to be through the day on, why is it not moving? There we go. All right, through the day tomorrow, you're going to have this storm start taking shape across Texas, across Oklahoma and Arkansas. You're going to get a region of freezing rain, a region of snow forming on the northern side, and then the storm really starts taking shape through the day on Saturday into Sunday with a large shield of ice, and then a large shield of snow on the northern side. And here, as that piece of energy, like we looked at in the upper levels, let's move back to the upper levels quick. Let me just show you where we're at here. Here we are. Here's that energy that's forming the storm. And then you also have that confluence zone that's resulting in an enhanced precipitation shield that's driving it northward with that southwest flow. And let's move back to the surface here and move it along. You're going to get a lot of overriding precipitation because of you have the Arctic air mass and you have the warm air mass. You're going to get a lot of overriding, and you're going to get ample amounts of precipitation with this storm. And let's move this along here. Here's the low pressure. Here's the storm, and it's starting to transfer its energy along the coast like a classic nor'easter. And guys, this is going to result in a crippling ice storm for portions of the South Central and Southeastern US. But then it's also going to result in substantial amounts of snow across portions of the Ohio Valley into the Mid-Atlantic and the New England region. And I just want to show you here. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the snowfall forecast for the Euro. There we go. And look at this. You get this nice swath of significant snowfall with possibly up to 12 to 18 inches within South Central and Southeastern PA, up into New England, and then also into Southern Indiana and Ohio and Northern Kentucky. That's where you're going to get the highest totals in terms of snowfall. Now, I want to show you what the GFS is showing, because the GFS is very similar to what the Euro is showing. Let's take a look at that quick. All right, here is the GFS. We're going to start with the upper levels here. This is the energy that's going to result in the storm. This is the energy that's going to be the steering mechanism that's going to steer this piece of energy to the north and east. And I'll show you here. You get this piece digging down, and then the flow is out of the southwest, and look at where the energy goes. It goes up into the northeast. And then you also, again, you have that confluence zone that's going to help enhance precipitation, but then you're going to get a lot of overriding air resulting in an increased precipitation field. And that's why when you look at the surface map, let's take a look at the surface map for the GFS. Look how large of a precipitation shield you get out of this storm. I mean, you're going to get snow. It's going to be snowing all the way from Oklahoma and Arkansas all the way over into New England at the same time. This is a large storm system, and you're going to have ample amounts of moisture with this storm. And look at this. You get the low pressure. It moves to the north and east along that frontal boundary that we have in place. And then look at this. It transfers its energy to the coast. So now you get coastal interaction. You get that baroclinic zone that's along the coast to start, enhancing the precipitation field. And look at this. You get a nice shield of snow on the northern end. You get crippling amounts of ice on the southern end. And look at this. It moves offshore through the day on Monday, and we are left with, let's take a look at the snow totals, because there's going to be a lot of snow. Let's look at this. Totals, and look at this. You get a nice swath of about 12 to 18 inches, if not more, because we're going to have higher snow ratios. This is banking on a 10-to-1 snow ratio. With the cold air that's going to be in place, especially in the beginning of the storm, especially up in here into Pennsylvania, New York, and into New England, you're going to get higher ratios. So I think that this 12 to 18 could easily be extended into Pennsylvania, into southern New England. But we'll post the snowfall map tomorrow. That's it for today. I will post a video later on. We'll diagnose all the other models and maybe even look at the later runs of the GFS and Euro and see where we are standing at that point. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe and share the video.